What will you do, Curious George? How to read this book. Curious George has some choices to make. You get to pick what he'll do. Just follow the tabs to find out what happens next. It's a bright, sunny morning, and Curious George wants his friend, the man with the yellow hat, to read him a story. But the man is rushing out the door. He tells George to meet him downtown at noon by the big clock for a surprise. I know you're a curious little monkey, but don't be late, he says with a smile. And try not to get into any messes. George has some time before he needs to meet his friend. There are so many things he could choose to do. What should George do first? George works on a puzzle, or George paints a picture. George eats a banana for breakfast and works on a jigsaw puzzle. The puzzle has a lot of pieces. It's fun, but it takes a while to put together. Oh my, look at the clock. George can't be late to meet his friend. It's time to head downtown. How should George travel? George takes the bus, or George rides his bike. George loves to ride his bike and ring his bell. Ding, ding! The man with the yellow hat told George not to be late for his surprise, which makes him curious. What could it be? This little monkey still has time for some adventures before he finds out. What should he do now? George parks his bike and visits the music store? Or George parks his bike and visits the balloon seller? At the music store, George tries all of his favorite instruments at the same time. He is a one-monkey band making a joyful racket. The store's owner smiles and claps along. After George finishes his song, he'll still have some time before he needs to meet the man with the yellow hat. What should he do next? George goes to see the balloon seller, or George goes to the fire station. George meets a nice lady who gives him a bunch of balloons. George likes balloons, and he is happy to have so many. But the balloons are too strong for a little monkey. George floats up, up, up in the air. How will he get back down to the ground? George grabs onto the branch of a tall tree, or George drops into a swimming pool. George grabs onto a branch of a tall tree and lets go of the balloons. The tree is in the park. People picnic and fly kites and play soccer. George remembers that the big clock is in the park. If he climbs down now, he still has time for a bit more fun. George joins a soccer game, or George helps a girl fly a kite. George runs to the soccer field and joins a game. It is tied 2-2. He bounces the ball off his head and scores. Goal! George's team wins the game. Now that was exciting. What should this little monkey do next? There's still some time. Flying a kite would be nice. George decides he better go right to his meeting place. At last, George arrives at the meeting place, the big clock. Tick-tock. Will the man with the yellow hat get there soon? What will the surprise be? Despite all of his adventures, George is still a bit early. This little monkey has a big decision to make. George waits here for his friend, or there's still a little time. Flying a kite would be nice. George waited patiently, and guess what? The man with the yellow hat met him at noon, just as he said he would. He led George to the town library, where, surprise! There is a story hour just for kids, and one curious little monkey, George, listens to his friend read his favorite book at last. What a perfect end to George's adventure!